thank you for joining this session. My name is Jonathan Shapiro-Ward. I'm a product manager with the AWS Migration Services, and I'm joined by Enrico Penna, a partner solutions architect. And in this session, we're going to be talking about best practices to help optimize your migration journey. In this session, we're going to focus on two particular optimizations. One is the use of Migration Evaluator to help optimize your decision-making process and accelerate the decisions that you can make around your migration. And then the second is using the AWS Application Migration Service to expedite and automate the actual migration itself. And we're going to focus on one particular type of migration, and that is the rehost, also called the lift and shift. So let's start there. So why are we going to be focusing on a rehost? So a rehost is one of the 7 Rs. So that includes other migration types, such as refactoring, repurchase, and replatforming. But all of these different types of migration strategies have their own merits. Rehost is particularly interesting, however, because it offers a very low risk and low difficulty solution for migrating to AWS. With a rehost, you keep many of the same assumptions in place that you have in your on-premises architecture. You keep the same operating system, same configuration, the same general assumptions on premises as you would on AWS. So when you have a Hyper-V or VMware virtual machine on premise and you migrate that to AWS, you're largely moving from an on-premise VM to Amazon EC2. And because it's a very subtle translation, it's non-disruptive. You don't have to go through a significant retraining or any significant architectural changes. So that allows you to realize the value of AWS very, very quickly. And you can apply some initial optimizations, such as right sizing, such that you get the optimal compute and storage configuration that you're not using any more than you need, and then apply various pricing optimizations, such as reserved instances and savings plans. And that helps drive efficiency, so immediately realizing the value of AWS. However, one of the benefits as well of a lift and shift is that once you've gone through it, you can then continue to apply optimizations. So you can go further down the road and apply additional modifications, such as applying some element of replatforming, such as moving from, say, a Postgres database running on Amazon EC2, moving that to Amazon RDS, such that you are able to reduce the management overhead and gain some efficiencies through that. And maybe subsequently you could go to other optimizations, such as moving to Amazon Lambda or to Amazon EKS, to take your architecture to microservices or containers and drive more optimizations that way. But that's further down the road. So one of the great things about a rehost is that it gives you these options. You don't necessarily have to go down that road. You can realize that initial value proposition and stay there if you so want, or there's many things that you can go to achieve in the future. And this is just one of the migration types that you can pursue. Many of the other types may be good alternatives, or a refactor, maybe something that is worth pursuing if you want to drive to optimizations sooner. But this rehost and then optimize and modernize, that has a much more gradual speed of change to it, but realizes some very easy value very, very quickly. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this session. And where we're going to focus on a best practice, first of all, for rehost and for migrations in general, is in getting a good understanding and getting data to drive that migration decision. And we're going to look at leveraging Migration Evaluator. So our first best practice is to make data-driven decisions by using Migration Evaluator. So when you're doing a migration, and this extends to all migration types, not just rehosts, but for any AWS migration, you're going to have questions. And many of these questions will extend to timelines. When am I migrating? What am I migrating? How many CPUs are involved? Cores, disk? How much RAM is involved? And they're very low-level questions, but these all really relate to the data center footprint, the costs involved, the scope of the migration. There's also going to be a lot of cost questions. What's going to be the ROI on investing, the return on investment of investing in a migration? What's going to be some of the costs associated in the migration? There's going to be many questions. And if you want to realize the best possible migration, it is best to go forward with as much information as possible, having full understanding and being able to answer these questions such that it's not left as a blank until very, very late. You have a plan and you're wanting to deliver on that plan. And there's many ways to get that sort of data, but how we view the best practice is in building an AWS migration business case. And we do that through the use of Migration Evaluator. So our AWS business case, that takes into account the current state. So it's a view of your existing on-premises data center footprint, whatever's in scope for your migration. So it will consider what the environment looks like, how many servers or virtual machines that you have, the operating systems, the licenses. It'll take into account the full gamut of what is in your data center and help you understand what is there, shine a light into some of the dark corners of your environment and quantify what is in scope for migration. It will then look at what the cost comparison would look like on AWS and look at different pricing models such that you can right size, so you can get exactly the matched set of resources that you need, so you're not over provisioning. Most on-premises environments are over provisioning. We want to avoid that and drive efficiency, so we right size, we match the resources, and then we look at the pricing models to apply to that, different reserve instances, approaches that can be applied on top of that. And through those options, we can present different pricing strategies and look at what different end states would look like on AWS. So from this, we can really go from nothing in the earliest stages of your migration. We don't really have a great understanding as to what end state looks like, to producing a end state of your migration, having quantifiable numbers as to what the ROI looks like, and having really a concrete vision as to what your migration can achieve. And that is really the first best practice that we want to hit on, is quantifying and understanding your migration and then being able to deliver upon that migration. But how do we actually construct that business case? So Migration Evaluator is the service for doing exactly that. So Migration Evaluator is both a service and a program. So we have various technology components that we use to help collect and analyze data, but the delivery of a Migration Evaluator engagement is also led by a team of expert program managers and solutions architects. And this team will help assist you in collecting data from your on-premises environment, analyzing that data, producing the cost scenarios and cost modeling, and then walking you through understanding that business case and analyzing it such that you're best informed and making the best decisions upon that data. They're really there to help guide and shepherd you through this whole process. Critically as well, Migration Evaluator is free. That there is no cost associated with the service. There is no cost per core, per machine. There's no cost at all. There's also no time limit as to how long you can use the service for. So if you want to use it very quickly and get to a result within days, absolutely possible. However, if you want to run the collection over a longer period, build multiple business cases, really do a longer term engagement, we're absolutely amenable to that as well, and we'll work with you to help you achieve your migration goals. And as well, Migration Evaluator is non-invasive. It's non-disruptive to your environment to collect that data. We'll look at how we collect data in just a second. So there's really 3 steps in the Migration Evaluator process. The first is in doing discovery, collecting data from your on-premises environment. There's 3 options for that. So the first would be the least disruptive, and that is a flat file. So we can take a flat file export of your environment, such as an export of your change management database, your CMDB, or we can take from a monitoring and management tool, and we can take that file and then analyze that and then use that to produce our business case. However, if you want to get more detailed information, maybe granular performance information that we can use for right sizing and other optimization, another option would be to use a collector. There's 2 options here. One is to leverage the Migration Evaluator collector, and that is an agentless collector, and that will collect via SNMP, VMware, a few other protocols from your environment. It is a virtual machine appliance, so you install it into your VMware or other environment, but it doesn't have to be installed onto machine. It's not an agent-based, it's agentless, so you install it into the environment and then it will passively collect, very non-disruptive into your environment, no performance impact, and it will collect data from your environment and then batch it and send it to Migration Evaluator for analysis. And there's various security configurations. You don't necessarily have to upload, you can batch it and send it as a file. You can live sync it with us. There's various options on data security and how you can redact information so you can install it in secure data center environments. Another option would be the application discovery service. That's AWS EDS. And that's another agency collector that can be used with other AWS services and with AWS Migration Hub. And then a last option would be making use of a partner collector, such as the Device42 collector. We integrate with a range of partner solutions as well to collect from your environment. Regardless of what option that you use, we can ensure that we can appropriately manage that data, redact it, secure it, apply appropriate controls on it to protect that data. And then once we have that data, that's when we can subsequently model to that data. So matching your data to Amazon EC2 based resources, analyzing the Microsoft licensing, analyzing the storage and compute aspects of your on-premises environment, and then match that to AWS resources. And then lastly is when we can produce a series of deliverables that we can then go through you with to ensure that what we produce captures your migration goals and goes into sufficient details around the outcomes that you're working towards. So let's have a look at those deliverables that we can produce. So there's three deliverables. One that I'm going to highlight in just a second is Quick Insights. But of those three deliverables, Quick Insights is automatically delivered. We'll focus on that in just a second. And then the second two deliverables, those are optional if you need a deeper business case. So the directional business case, that's an executive summary, PowerPoint. It goes into detail in a lot of the different cost scenarios. It goes into detail around different pricing options and what we discovered, and it's something that's shareable with executives, with leadership, to help drive alignment and drive discussion. And that tool is very strong for gaining alignment and focus on a migration. So if you're trying to get a migration moving, if you're trying to get buy-in, if you're trying to get support from across business, this is an absolutely excellent tool for doing that. Another deliverable as well is our analytics engine. This is the tool that we use for building the business case, and it's an interactive tool that allows for creating new cost scenarios, exploring the utilization of servers, and really just exploring your environment at large and looking like what matching these resources to AWS would entail. And that's a very powerful tool, and it also offers various options, such as being able to export the findings and the summary of your environment. And that export can be used in a variety of tools. And we'll be seeing how an export from the AWS Analytics Engine is used. And Enrico will show how you can use that export to then execute on an AWS migration. But just before we see that, I want to focus in on our first deliverable, Quick Insights. And this first deliverable is a relatively recent launch from Migration Evaluator. And Quick Insights is a very powerful tool in helping to accelerate your decision making. So when we're going to work towards the other deliverables, typically we take a little time to collect data such that we have the best data available to really understand your environment. We typically look at a 2 to 3 weeks collection time to ensure that we have the full gamut of data. Quick Insights, however, is delivered within 24 hours of data becoming available, and it provides a summary snapshot of your environment. So it will quantify how many servers, virtual machine, licenses, databases, the cores, storage, all of these things. It will quantify what it has discovered, and then it will do a optimized match to what those AWS resources look like. So we give you a snapshot of your on-premise environment and the expected AWS costs within 24 hours of beginning data collection or of submission of your flat file. And that allows you to get very rapidly a good understanding of what some of the costs will be, understand if maybe things are missing from scope. When you're collecting data, we can understand if things are missing there, if the server count is incorrect, and we can use that to drive conversation with your AWS account team and to really examine the possibilities for how we can accelerate your migration further. And then we can stop there if that's all that's required, or we can go on to the analytics engine and the business case report if you require a deeper analysis. And those subsequent deliverables go far deeper, providing much more in-depth analysis, and can include additional AWS services such as VMware Cloud on AWS, or Cloud Azure includes Spot instances, various other things we can examine within that. But that's an option to go deeper. So once the Quick Insights report has been delivered, you've really got many next steps that you can pursue. But the balance of this is that all of these three different types of deliverables help provide insight that can help you make rapid decisions, understand your environment, and then determine what the best choice is for your AWS migration. And then once you've analyzed this environment, you've come to decisions around what it is that your migration targets want to be, and you decide that maybe rehost is what you want to do and you want to execute that migration, you can then leverage the guidance that Migration Evaluator produces to then develop a migration strategy that will deliver upon that business case and deliver the results that you seek. And one way to do that is really our second best practice, and that is what Eriko is going to talk about, is leveraging the insights that Migration Evaluator provides to then use the AWS Application Migration Service to deliver upon those insights and deliver your rehost migration.
Thanks, Jonathan. So let's see how the information that Migration Evaluator is recommending us can help with the transition to the cloud. The tool that is going to help us do the actual migration is called Application Migration Service, MGN for short. So you might be hearing me saying a lot of MGN here. Let's see what MGN can do for us. This is a lift and shift tool, so it's an agent-based. We are going to use this tool to bring the application as is into AWS. You can migrate from any kind of source. It can be a physical server, it can be a virtual machine, it can be workloads that are stored in other clouds. You can bring them to AWS. You also have the support of a wide range of operating systems. Different flavors of Linux and also Windows are supported. And you can also use the tool to do large-scale migrations. We have cases where hundreds of machines were migrated with MGN in a single wave. So this is a pretty powerful tool to help you migrate quickly to AWS. The tool works based on an agent, and the agent is going to sync every single block of your application back to AWS. So it's going to do an initial sync, and when it gets to 100% complete, it's going to change to a continuous data replication. So only the incremental, the new blocks that are being generated by your application are going to be migrated to the cloud. So it's very controlled. You can control the bandwidth. You can determine the way that this is going to work for you, the window that this is going to work for you. You also have an automated way of cutting over to AWS. So whenever the sync is in continuous data replication, you can move, you can do a cutover, a final move to the AWS cloud. This is going to automate and orchestrate all the process, so you don't have to worry about creating networks or creating EC2 instances. MGN is going to take care of that for you, and it's highly secure. So you can encrypt the data during the transit or at rest. We can use VPN, we can use Direct Connect, or you can also use the internet to transport your data. The data will always be encrypted at the agent or at the source, so you don't have to worry about that. You're going to see a quick demo, and it's a really easy tool to use. You don't need to do special training. In a few minutes, you can get your migration going. And it's also very useful, has a very useful feature, the testing feature. You can test the application, and you can test if the performance is going to be fine, if all the requirements are okay before doing the actual cutover. And you can do multiple tests. So this is a very good way of enhancing your process for each migration that you do to AWS. And if you maybe find something that's wrong, okay, we fix that. We fix the launch template. We do a new test until we are happy with the results. You can also plug this tool in migration factories. There is a migration factory from AWS that you can leverage and use the APIs of MGN to do large-scale migrations, and also leverage this tool for your cloud center of excellence. Okay, on the left, you have your on-premises environment. Maybe you have another cloud provider, Or you can also have an AWS account. Maybe you want to move from one account to the other, or you want to move your workload from one region to the other. So MGN can be used for different types of migrations. You install the agent. The agent is going to communicate with the console, the MGN console, and it's going to ask the console to spawn a replication server. This is a very lightweight server. It's a T3.small, and MGN is going to manage that for you. You don't have to worry about the licensing. It's a Linux-based server. It's also going to manage the EBS volumes that will receive the data that is being synced from on-premises or from your source environment into AWS. When you're ready to do a test, MGN is going to take care of that for you. It's going to create the networks. It's going to create the instance that you define following the migration evaluator recommendation. So you can have your environment right-sized in AWS. It can handle IP changes. It can handle disks. It's going to create everything for you. You don't have to manually create these anymore. And the test is going to be available as long as you want. When you're happy, you can finish the test, or if you need, you can do a new test and enhance your process. When you're ready to do the cutover, it's like a test that is going to last forever, right? So the cutover is going to keep the workload running. This is a free tool you can use for 90 days to migrate. You don't pay for the MGN tool, but you need to pay for the replication server and also the EBS used. So if you plan accordingly, if you plan your waves, it's going to be a very low-cost way of migrating to AWS. Let's see a quick demo.
So this is the application migration service. And in order to get started, when you log in for the first time, you need to set up some settings. So you have here the replication settings. You can choose a subnet, what type and size of replication server you're going to create. By default, it's a T3.small. Every 15 volumes that you sync is going to spawn another T3.small. We want to encrypt. If you are using VPN, Direct Connect, VPC peering, you want to check this one. If you want to throttle, you can check this one and establish a limit. I want everything, so we are good to go. To the IAM console under users, and you need to create a new user and attach the following policy. So AWS Application Migration Agent Policy. So I've logged into my WordPress source machine. This is the command to get the installation script. You can change the region here that's closest to you. I'm using US East 1. So we have the region that we want to sync to. This is the one that I want. It's also going to need the access key ID and the secret access key that we created for that user. Let's see how it goes. Now we need to choose which disks we want to sync. I want to sync my only one disk that I have, and it's going to connect to the application migration service console. It's going to download the agent binaries and install the agent for us. So this process can be automated. If you check the documentation, you can add along with the installation script command, you can add the access key, the secret key, and it's going to automate that. You can use Systems Manager to push the package and do the installation for you if you want. So it's a simple process to scale. Back to our application managed service console. As you can see, I'm in Virginia now. We have the server detected. And if we go to EC2, as you can see, it created here in Virginia replication server. So this is the initial configuration that we did. It's a t3.small, and this server is going to be managed by the application managed service. You don't have to worry about it. It's initializing here, and as soon as this is ready, it's going to start syncing. Let's see what kind of information do we have here. We have different stages, so we can do the initial sync, then we can test our migration. If everything goes okay, I can mark this as ready for cutover, and then we can do the actual cutover and transition to the AWS cloud. You can also see the server info here. It talks to the server, gets the CPU, memory, disk, operating system, and network details. And you can tag. So if you already have some tags, you can associate with this. You can also see the disk that is going to be synced. I have only one disk, 8 gigabytes. The replication settings, which size of replication serve do I want to use, and also the launch settings. This is really important. Here you can customize your transition to the AWS. So you can change the instance type to right size. So since the agent understands the CPU, the amount of memory that we have, if you want, you can let MGN do the sizing for you. It's going to find an instance family and type that's close to your needs. But since we have here our integration with Migration Evaluator, what we want to do here, we want to be prescriptive, right? So Migration Evaluator gave us a special family and a special type of instance. So you can be really prescriptive here. It's going to be launch template based. So you can define, for example, the instance type that you want. Maybe I want an M5 large. Okay. And you can associate a key pair and do all the good stuff that you can do with launch template, right? Define volumes. If you need extra volumes, you can customize here. Resource tagging, network interfaces. You can customize everything. Associate a public IP or not. So you can leave all the configuration here. And this is done. Okay, so now that I customized my launch template, we have to mark this one as the default because application migration service only uses the default. So let's set this one as the default version, is version 3. This is the new version. Okay, and let's go back to, as you can see, it just changed to M5.large and all the remaining configuration was kept the same. So now we are ready to sync this and start our journey to the cloud.
All right. Hope you like the demo. As you can see, it's really easy to install the agent, to get the initial setup, and then start migrating. So with the information that we received from Migration Evaluator, I was able to determine the best size for my instance, for my workload running on AWS. You can also leverage some training that we have for enhancing your knowledge, right? We have the strategy and tool training. It's really good for you to begin with your planning. And if you want to do a more deep dive session, we have a 2-day instructor-based training migrating to AWS. This is the one I highly recommend. You will learn how to plan and which tools to use, not only MGN, but other tools to use to bring your workloads to AWS. On behalf of me and Jonathan, thank you for choosing this session, and don't forget to fill the survey for us. Thank you.